because that is the type of leader I want to be. Going through this process of accepting this position, I don't have that nagging feeling of, can I lead? Fuck yeah, I can lead.
Yeah, yes.
You know?
Yes.
Like that is not the question anymore,
yes.
right? The question is, you know, how do I want to lead?
Yeah.
So that in of itself, you know, it's like, it's a huge, like, you know, lift off my shoulder, because, you know, the little tiny things like, oh, okay, well, I'm worried about, you know, what if the baby, like, these are all things that work itself out.
Woosah. Okay.
You're a cold piece of work for that one.
So I put it together and it got me.
You ain't right. You ain't right. You didn't say her voice.
On there. For those who are listening, that was a conversation with our dear late sister, Rosalinda Avicula, who affectionately we call Poca. That's for another show. That was a conversation less than 2 months before she passed. And I had an assignment from work that was reach out to some folks, and you started narrowing down on just focus on one person who reached out to you around leadership, and ask them, of all the people you could have called, why did you call me? Don't tell them you're recording it, because people tend to, sorry for attorneys, people tend to censor themselves. And so I've had that recording. It's the first time I've listened to it in full in almost 9 years. And we talked a lot about the context for that was she was in the process of accepting a new role as senior vice president. Part of the challenge for her was that she was very pregnant. She was 7 months pregnant, a little past 7 months pregnant. And it was taking a new role while being pregnant, getting ready to go out on maternity leave. And so she was doubting herself in terms of timing, as many women do. You know, should I be taking on this additional responsibility? I'm going to be gone for a while. Just the internal, and then the conversations you have with your partners around this. This was a conversation she and I had, and how she was navigating, contemplating, is this the right time? Am I able to do this? And so I'm glad I kept it. I'm glad, and to me, it just seemed like a fitting tribute to what we're talking about today, as we honor Poca, as we talk about maternal health. And let me just pause there, give you that background. Sorry.
So, Reset, welcome to the pink couch. Thanks, Meta.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yes. And yeah, I think we just need a real quick reset.
Yeah.
Because the heart is full, the heart is heavy, and that is the reason why we're here.
Yep.
We are here. This is why the couch was created. This is why the couch came to fruition, was because of this one act and the impact, the rippling impact that it has had on all of our lives, the lives of her families, and countless people to come. So this is not your regular Wednesday conversation, and I'm here for it.
No, ma'am.
I'm not here for it. I'm not here. I'm not ready. I was not ready to hear her voice.
Right.
And as heartbroken as I am that I now am gonna, the reality is that's the only way to hear her voice, because she's not here anymore. The problem still exists, right? Here we are so many years later, and the problem is still pervasive. We still are in a developed country where women do not survive childbirth. And to me, Poca has gone on to be with the Lord. She is in a better place than what we are here experiencing right now. The fact of the matter of the thing that took her away still is a problem. It's just as heartbreaking to me.
Yeah.
Because there are people who have joined her in heaven for the same exact reason, and they shouldn't, none of them should be there.
Yep.
So when you say heavy-hearted, I feel that. And I am hopeful that at some point we will get to a place where we will not have this conversation anymore.
Yeah.
Especially since most of these deaths are preventable. They are preventable. And this is not a woman's issue. This is not a socioeconomic class issue. This is a leadership issue for every single woman, every single man, every single person who has a family, whether you are in business, whether you are stay at home, whether it doesn't matter, because we're talking about somebody's daughter, somebody's mother, somebody's sister. And they're not with us anymore for something that was preventable. So if you weren't moved to action before, I implore you, it's time.
All right, let's bring up our very special guest who will be able to have a conversation with us about this. We have Gabrielle Albert, affectionately known as Gabby, joining us. EJ, you want to?
Absolutely. So let me tell you a little bit about Miss Gabby. So Miss Gabby and I became fast friends real quick in a situation, and you know, if nothing happens today except for you hear the words that come out of Gabby's mouth, the work that she's doing is life-changing and transformative. She is not just an executive. She's not just a title. She's a woman who looked at one of the most devastating crises facing Black families in America, and she said, not on my watch, not on my watch. So besides bringing 20 plus years of corporate excellence from a myriad of organizations, she is a powerhouse woman. She's a powerhouse. And she is at the front lines with her organization for Cure for Moms, eradicating maternal mortality in this country. So please, please, please give a big pink couch welcome to Miss Gabby.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So happy to be here with you all.
It's equally, I'm happy that you're here, and I wish you weren't at the same time.
Absolutely.
Very true. Most people, when you think about being an executive director and my partner with the founder, we always say we hope to work ourselves out of a job one day, which is not what most people want to do.
So that actually perfectly opens us up to the first thing I want to ask you, which is, before we get into all of the, tell us why this work chooses someone like you. Because you have options.
Yes, you hit the nail on the head. It chooses. Everything in life is very purposeful, but when I say it's by design, it's by design. Charles Johnson, who is the founder of For Cure for Moms, who lost his wife, Kira Johnson, 10 years ago to a preventable maternal death. We met our first week of college at Florida A&M University, so FAMU. And we've been fast friends ever since. And we went, our separate ways. I went on to be a corporate executive. But when I was in college, I actually had my roommate, he had sickle cell. And so I became a patient advocate and didn't know. At the age of 18, I learned what a morphine drip was. I knew how to run to a nurse, talk to a doctor until his family could come if he was having a crisis and was in the hospital. But like I said, I did my work, I moved forward. And then in the span of about 2 years, so from 2015 to 2018, I personally saw the spectrum of maternal health, the failure of maternal health in the United States. I had a line sister who literally 3 weeks due, clean bill of health, went to the doctor that morning, in fact, went to the hospital and they didn't hook her up. She was 3 weeks due. She slipped into a coma and gave birth to a stillborn. Thankfully, she's still here with us, but her son is not. Then 6 months later, Charles lost Kira. And then about another 9 months later, I had another girlfriend in Charlotte, North Carolina, who in her postpartum, literally a week after following postpartum, was having bad headaches. She took the ambulance to the regional hospital. They told her husband to come get the discharge papers. He walks back in the room, watches her stroke out. She now suffers she had open brain surgery and suffers seizures for the rest of her life. because of, like I said, how things line up, I was in a position to help nurse both my girlfriends out the hospital. And in doing so, in talking to so many other women, just realized that this was happening all over the place, whether it was severe morbidity or bouts with preeclampsia, going back to the hospital, not being told that they were diagnosed with preeclampsia. So it became a pet peeve. And when I was at Kimberly Clark, which was my last corporate job here in Atlanta, I called Charles and I said, my goal is to try to make this our company social justice cause, especially post George Floyd. And so I led ERG, brought him in, had a few conversations. They actually did sign on to the Momnibus Act, but changes in leadership kind of fell on deaf ears. And so when I left, I had free time. I was already a board president, had the opportunity to go to Harvard's first ever social justice cohort called Upswell with Charles, and came back and said, hey, what do you need? We needed an executive director. I volunteered for 5 months. And at the end of 5 months, he said, Gabby, there's no way I could lose you. And I said, you know what? I've given my talents to corporate for all these years. So why not do something to change? Specifically, as you mentioned, these deaths are preventable. 84% of these deaths are preventable. That's a CEO's dream. If you were to bring an 84% diagnosable project to any CEO, you would have the resources needed to put it on shelf, to solve the problem, add the service. So for me, because I am unique in that I'm actually not a mom in this space, I'm godmom and auntie extraordinaire, this is my opportunity to leave a legacy, and more importantly, to do something that's actually going to make a difference on this earth, not just selling another consumer good or making money for corporate America.
Gabby, why do you think we haven't solved this yet?
Because it's, unfortunately, it is deemed as a women's issue, and we know where we stand in the United States with women's issues, which is one of the reasons why we try to reframe this as a fundamental human right. What we like to say at Fork Here for Moms is there's only two types of people in this world. Either you are a mom or you have a mom. So it's everybody's business. And it's helping to reframe that and really make sure that everybody plays a role. We always say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes that same village to get that child here and make sure that mom is not only healthy and safe, but thrives. And somehow down the line, we forgot that, right? We talk about how it's just going to be between me and my partner. We don't talk about what goes on if you had a tragic incident. And those are the opportunities we have to change, to educate, and more importantly, to make sure that everybody can play a role. Like I said, I can play a great role, or a godmother. Me being an advocate in that room, I'm not going to have that same tie in the moment that it's for my partner or if it's my daughter. So those are the opportunities. How do we uplift men and empower them, right? We're in a place in a day today where men are clearly making the decisions on women's bodies. So why don't we change that? That's what we're doing at Fork Here for Moms. We're bringing in fathers. Fork Here for Dads. It's the first other website and app for men on their pregnancy journey. And yes, I'm going to say men on their pregnancy journey. No, they do not carry the baby. But we know there is facts that if men are involved from the very beginning in prenatal, the outcomes are 1.5 times better. If we know that women are not being listened to, the CDC has a campaign called Hear Her. But we know men are being listened to, then why not teach them what to say? And we know that men are willing to be there. Gone are the days of smoking a stogie, right? In the waiting room. They're present, but they don't know what to do. We just saw that happen with Mercedes Wells in Chicago when she was kicked out the hospital. Her husband was there, but he didn't feel comfortable pushing back against a hospital and a hospital system. And that's what we teach in Fork Here for Dads is how do you understand your rights, right? Most people don't understand their basic patient right. The doctor is an expert of medicine. You are an expert of your body. It takes a marriage and a partnership between the two to produce the end results. And what we find all too often in this space is that doctors are not honoring that marriage. But if that's the case, move, find another doctor. That is well within your right and your patient's rights.
We worked with a clinician who's a OBGYN, and one of the things that he said probably over 15 years ago, and I still use it for this day in many different settings, which is I'm a much better OBGYN when I'm involved when you're thinking about having a child than when I'm sitting there delivering your child. So what it sounds, we need to go way more upstream conversation around as you're thinking about having a kid and getting on that same alignment. And that's not normally happening unless, there's usually a problem with that sounds
A
judgmental.
challenge.
If you need to seek alternative ways of starting your family, that's usually when those pre-planning conversations are happening. But,
Correct.
yeah.
And that's the thing, right? So as women, we all go to an OBGYN, or we should be going. That have those conversations in the beginning. One thing that happens all too often is you might actually have the great relationship with your OBGYN, but the chance when you're pregnant that OBGYN is going to deliver you, it's Vegas odds, because what if they're in surgery? What if they're not working that day? Then you're now dealing with the practice. But if you've never talked to anybody outside else in that practice, if you've never asked any other doctor, how do they work with women of color? Are they aware of obstetric violence? Are they aware of implicit bias and racial, right? If they say no, that's a sign. But we can do that research ahead. We spend all our time. Like I said, we will plan how to look good, get our hair done, right? In pregnancy now, we will make sure that we have a maternity shoot. We will make sure that we have a lavish baby shower. We'll have a gender reveal. But why don't we do that planning in terms of finding our doctor, finding a midwife, finding a doula, postpartum services, right? Like, one of my messages to young women is, if you will save that bag, that vacation, one a year from, if you know you want to be a mom, start saving when you graduate or at 18. Save $1,000 a year, $5,000 a year. You'll have a nest egg that can get you all the services you want. But we don't talk about that.
Right.
So, Gabby, that raises another issue for me, right? So we live in the United States. This is a very wealthy country. Yet and still, we need to save money. A lot of people can't afford to do anything other than what is being offered to them under their benefit package, wherever they have those, right? And so when you think about creating this village, having a midwife, having a doula, having your OBGYN, everybody as a village, it takes resources to do that in this country. So I think that also could be a barrier for people, but I believe that there are resources out there and options that people can follow and organizations that they can go to for help. But I just don't think that we talk about it enough and that they're aware of it.
Yes. No, you are correct. And the thing is if you plan for birth, the reality is $10,000 is going to be your average birthing cost, whether you have insurance or you don't. If you know that anyway, right? How do you leverage the system? If you have insurance, perfect example, you can plan to leverage it because you can get all your other medical services done that year. Right? Because if you're going to max out, then why not get all the services and things offered? That's a plan. But if you know that, you know what, because you researched a year or 2 years ahead that your insurance doesn't cover the doctor that you want, you can put that money aside and work directly. You can hire a midwife. A midwife is a $5,000 to $10,000. A doula is $2,500 to $5,000. And so again, we make savings plans for everything else. Why not make savings plans for that? And yes, it is terrible that we are the most expensive country in the world to have a child and have the highest maternal mortality rates in the industrialized world. But that's the reality. But what we can do about it, right? Finding a doula ahead of time. When you have a shower, instead of getting a Louis bag, get a doula. Better fact, why don't you get a postpartum doula and a night nurse that will sleep train your child?
Put it on your registry.
There you go.
Who got a Louis bag for the? I never.
Wow. Do you not see these diaper bags that literally?
Listen,
I walking around.
Y'all. I was guilty. I got a Gucci diaper bag.
See?
And it was on my list.
Who's the bougie one? Different show.
I might have been from Kmart that I reused from my second one.
I really wanted it though.
Well, I think about this mindset shift that has to happen. In that, since the beginning of time, I remember because I had both of my kids by C-section. and the stereotyping, which is there's an undercurrent of judgment that occurs with, oh, you're not having it natural. I just expelled a fetus from my body. That is a major event, and we've taken it for granted, regardless of how the child comes into the world. I think we have taken advantage of, these are all happy stories that the movies and that sort of thing. It's glorified. And I have to admit, it's interesting, and that probably because I'm on the back nine of life, I don't see too many pregnant people. But every time I do, and I saw one just last week, African-American girl, and I eyeballed her, and she was at least 12 months pregnant. She was very, very pregnant. And so I was tempted. I was so tempted to just, and I kind of kicked myself for not. I'd rather her think I'm a creep or a weirdo to say, who's going to be in the birthing room with you? What kind of conversation relationship do you have with your clinician? Make sure, do you have somebody in there who, don't bring that auntie to the picnic. Well, bring her to your birthing room, make her talk to the doctors. I kick myself for not doing that, because she probably got her Louis bag at her baby shower, and has the giraffes all in her nursery room, and I have that. Ooh, should I say something? And I just wonder, having gone through this, what types of conversations should we be having without freaking out pregnant moms and getting stalking charges and
well, I think the reality is we should be having those conversations, but you can start within your own circle, whether that's your nieces, your cousins, the auntie, whoever, that is going to want to have. I mean, and it's kind of full circle, right? We're now having these same conversations when you're in perimenopause and menopause. Like, my mama didn't tell me this, and it's because we're missing all of these conversations that actually start right at the age of when you can reproduce. And so we always talk about abstinence and all these things, but why not start that conversation of proper planning for a child? Not only are we talking about the health, but better yet, do you understand the system? Do you understand that child support, right? Like, if we could plan properly, half the issues that we have would go away. And so I do think that having these conversations younger and sooner, so whether you're a member of a sorority, member of a church, member of a women's group, how do you bring this conversation topic up? This should be a household, like y'all on the couch, the pink couch. These couch conversations should be happening all the time so that we can destigmatize what birth really is. It is not a Hallmark movie. It's also not all tragic, right? It is a spectrum. And the more you understand the spectrum, the better you can plan. Because just like any other spectrum of being a Black woman in America, there are horror stories and there are miracle stories. And all of those play a part into how we do our job. We will talk about the corporate stories. We will talk about the education stories. We'll talk about Rosa Parks and all, right? But why don't we talk about this for our own health?
Right.
It's amazing, because even the four of us have very different stories of mom, auntie, and how, our kids. Go ahead, EJ.
So I was just going to say, and this becomes very personal. When it hits you, it becomes very personal. And you don't want to hear about women and the statistics and the what have you. These people have names. Poca has a name. Kira has a name. That's a person. So when you think about, what's the case that keeps you up at night? Who is that person?
I mean, I think all of the women that I mentioned, from Kira to my two girlfriends to her son Kodo, who is not here, and all the countless people we continue to, like, for me, what keeps me up is 84%. We know what to do. We just not doing it. So for me, that's all that I need, because we know what to do and we just got to apply pressure, right? I mean, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, we were told we couldn't get the educations, we couldn't get the jobs. We're basically being told the same thing in terms of our own health. If we apply that same mindset, if everybody makes this a cause, we can do it.
Yeah.
We can do it.
Whew.
You know what, bro? You said something
Mhm.
that struck with me, that just like a light bulb went off, right, Ro? When you said, I think we take for granted,
Yes.
right, that this is just, there's no challenge. This is just what we do, right? I think every single person has had a moment in their lifetime where they have taken for granted either that they could be part of the journey of bringing life, every woman anyway, bringing life into the world, or that it would just go smoothly, right? Sure, there's pain. Everybody talks about, oh, the contractions and the pain and the carrying and all the things, but nobody talks about it in a way that they have pause. Like, I could possibly not survive this, right? Like, no one thinks about it that way. We all take for granted that if you go into a room, you're coming out with a baby.
And you're right. We take it for granted, but that's also understanding the history here. Since the beginning of time, women have been giving birth. They've been giving birth using gravity, the use of midwives. Well, the United States is one of only like 10 countries that does not use midwifery as the standard care of model. We have medicalized birth, and that right there has caused the complications that we're seeing. We can go back historical. Anarcha, Lucy, and Betsy are the three slaves that Dr. J. Marion Sims, who is considered the father of modern gynecology, that's where they get Black women don't have pain, because he developed the speculum and all of what we know in gynecologic medicine on the backs of Black women.
Mhm.
And then when you get into, okay, midwives went away, and you know what? The midwives in this country, they were Black. But when we went through Jim Crow and we had the voting tests, they had midwifery tests. And so Black midwives disappeared. And then doctors came over. And today, the supine position, laying on your back, who is that beneficial for? The doctor. There is all types of studies that show that letting gravity, being on fours, lying on your side, doing whatever you need to do. But what do you constantly see? I can send you a montage of videos. What do you mean? I've given birth to X thousand babies. Lay on your back, put the stirrups. All of that goes into our history. And that's why when you know and recognize that the system is causing the issues we're having, it's not birth, it's the system. And so when we say the system is no more and we're willing to break the system, that's when the change comes. And so taking that back, if you can have a midwife, get a midwife. If you can have a doula, get a doula. Hell, you can have all three, but you just have to research to find out what hospital systems you can have all of that. We put all of our money into other things. Why not put that into the safety of ourselves, our child, and the benefit of our futures?
Amen. So I was going to shift us, but you already took us there to, the segment that we call Do Something. So at the end of the day, what is it? There's a lot of richness and depth to the conversation that we have. So what are we going to do about it? And I think, Gabby, you just gave us a whole bunch of really meaningful do somethings. The one that I would add on there is trust your gut, trust it, right? Robin, you brought up the story of, should I have approached that person? Should I? Guess what? The worst thing that can happen is that you'll be a little embarrassed. You can deal with that. Your life, someone else's life, or a little bit of egg on your face. Trust your gut. Advocate for yourself or someone else, because we need it. I want to go to, do you have, Robin, Kennedy, any other, or Gabby, you want to throw out another, do something before we close?
Well, I think you mentioned it, right? Well, so it's the each one teach one. Have this conversation with somebody else, and never, ever, ever go to the hospital by yourself. Patient advocacy is everywhere. You're going to need it when you're having a baby. You're going to need it when you're parents. So make this a muscle, brain, and how you use it. Learn to use questions, take notes, check your notes from the doctor, learn to push back and get comfortable against the system.
Thank you. Thank you. So I want to bring us to a close and say this. Thank you, Gabby. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And there is a lot here. Don't let what you heard today stay on the couch. Take this with you, share, educate someone. And I want to leave this where we started it. Poca, we built this for you. We're still building. We love you. Your death will not be in vain. We miss you, and we will never, ever, ever stop. And with that, thank you.
Thank you.